Hello, and thank you for tuning in today. My name is Zach Norman, and I'm a broker on the Healthcare and Human Services team here at Arlington Roe. Today, we're going to discuss public entities and current trends in the public sector space. I am joined by Royanna Carle, Director of Business Development at Tokio Marine HCC Public Risk Group. Royanna, please tell us a bit about yourself.
Good morning, Zach. Thanks for having me. Public sector has been my home, if you will, for over 20 years. I've worked predominantly in the carrier space. I've been with Tokio Marine now for, going on 2 years, and should hopefully be able to lend some insight for some of the challenges and some of the interesting developments that have been happening in our space the last couple of years. So thanks for the opportunity.
Awesome. Royanna is going to be able to provide us with very valuable insights into current trends and future trends. Let's jump right into this one. Royanna, what trends are you noticing in the industry? Have there been any disruptions in the marketplace lately?
The public sector space, as with most industry segments, has experienced its fair share of disruptions the past few years, with some pretty significant implications for insureds. Several longtime carriers in our industry have exited the space. They've stopped writing in certain states. They're no longer offering certain lines of coverage, or they've reduced the capacity and the limits. Law enforcement is a line where securing coverage has become more challenging. Far greater underwriting scrutiny is being exercised by carriers. Losses are being examined to a far greater degree, and hiring and risk management practices are being thoroughly reviewed. Some carriers are even involving risk control and having pre-inspections and interviews on new business opportunities that have a law exposure. There's also a changing perception of the public towards law enforcement and towards municipal leadership in general. That's a significant consideration for 2022. Jurors' attitudes are hardening, and advertising and social media is certainly having an impact as well. You'd have to be living under a rock to not be aware of some of the nuclear verdicts that we're seeing and the high-profile police-related cases that have been all over the news the past couple of years. Cyber is another area where public entities are not immune. And to further complicate matters, many municipalities have not adopted some of the firewall protections or even have basic safeguards in place, such as MFA, multi-factor authentication, to protect them from ransomware attacks or a breach. Climate is also having an impact on pricing and availability for public entities, as claims tied to weather have increased in both frequency and severity. Coastal areas are certainly impacted the most, but so are areas that are prone to wildfires, wind and hail events, and tornadic activity. Sadly, extreme weather is becoming more the norm, and not just with the hot temperatures that that are being set. You probably remember last year in Texas, the deep freeze. That weather event resulted in $100 billion in losses last year, something that was not on anyone's radar screen, especially not from an insurance standpoint. And probably lastly, sexual abuse and molestation. That is another area that we're continuing to watch. It's quite volatile line as states, beginning with California in 2020, they have either extended or suspended the statute of limitations that were on these claims. In addition to California, over 40 states have, to a certain extent, updated legislation pertaining to sexual abuse claims, making it easier for the victims of abuse to seek justice. Many carriers inadequately reserved for these type of look-back claims.
Thank you for providing such great information on recent trends. As a follow-up, do you anticipate any further market disruption over the next year?
While I don't have a crystal ball, I suspect that there will be. We feel that the next year or two will further reveal which carriers, at least in our public entity space, are positioned well, that are exercising sound underwriting discipline and obtaining rate adequacy for their book of business. I believe that the financial strength and stability of the carrier will become even more important when selecting an insurance program. And truthfully, that should also be the case for insurance carriers and reinsurers that back the municipal pools that are operating across the country. There really shouldn't be a different set of criteria or standards.
I agree. And jumping back to law enforcement liability,
Sure.
Can you provide some insight into the main factors that are negatively impacting the rates?
The rising law enforcement claims and some of these increasingly large settlements and verdicts being paid out have contributed greatly to the reason why some of our competitors have truthfully exited the space. And fewer carriers are offering the law coverages. They're no longer offering the limits that they once used to. So more claims lead to obviously large pricing challenges, if you will. There's also been an erosion of qualified immunity for officers in some states, such as Colorado, Illinois, and New Mexico. These immunity caps, or these immunities, they put caps on the amount of money that an entity might have to pay out as a result of the actions or inactions of an officer. With those immunities going away, carriers are reluctant to offer coverages in those states or are limiting their exposure and watching to see how these recent developments actually take shape and play out. Unfortunately, to further exacerbate the current challenges in law enforcement, many communities are experiencing an officer shortage as officers are retiring or changing occupations. It's important that the strict hiring practices and the screening practices that are established by the entity are not weakened to fill positions, and that officers, both new and veteran officers, are given the proper training, resources, and support to do their jobs well.
Switching gears, PFAS has become a topic of discussion for public entities, and I was wondering if you could shed some light as to why they are so important, and honestly, what are they?
PFAS, those are per and polyfluorinated substances. That's what PFAS stands for. They're a group of chemicals that are used to make fluoropolymer coatings that protect the products that they resist heat, they resist oil, stains, grease, water. And they're a concern because one, they don't break down in the environment. Two, they move through soil and they can contaminate the drinking water supply and sources. And three, that they build up not only in fish and in wildlife, but also in people who consume PFAS, which is in food or is in water. So obviously water authorities, water districts are impacted, as are cities that provide water to its residents. But PFAS, they're also used in the foam that firefighters use. PFAS creates a blanket that cuts off the fuel from the oxygen that it needs to burn, and it's now being viewed as a pollutant. This important topic is something that our industry is monitoring as we are seeing increased litigation involving contaminated water, and carriers are starting to exclude this coverage. Also, the EPA is in the process of designating the PFAS family of chemicals as hazardous substances.
Thank you for that insight.
Sure.
So finally, where does Tokio Marine fit in the public entity marketplace, and what makes Tokio Marine different?
Well, Tokio has been around a very long time. Tokio Marine since 1879. We're a premier global insurance company. We are rated A++ superior by AM Best. And Tokio Marine Houston Casualty Company, of which we are a part of, is a leading specialty insurance group with offices in the US, Mexico, UK, continental Europe. And we write more than 100 classes of specialty insurance. The public risk group is one of those specialty areas within Tokio Marine HCC. Our group, since 1985, the public risk group at Tokio Marine HCC has been safeguarding communities. Our team of experienced underwriters, risk control professionals, and claims professionals are all dedicated exclusively to public risk. That's all we do. We have extensive knowledge and a very deep understanding of the municipal space, along with relevant expertise to draw upon when we work with our broker partners to serve the public entity community.
Can you touch briefly on Tokio Marine's appetite and target classes?
Absolutely. We offer the property and casualty coverages to small to mid-sized cities, rural counties, and to special districts. As a general guideline, populations 50,000 and less fall within our sweet spot. We offer all the package lines, so property, casualty, the professional lines, which would include public officials, employment practices, employment benefits, law enforcement, medical malpractice for EMS and paramedic operations, the auto lines, liability and physical damage, and also excess. We offer sexual abuse, and for those entities that provide utilities, we do also have failure to supply, sewer backup, and broaden pollution coverages. We do not write schools, and at the present time, we don't offer workers' comp. While guaranteed cost deductible programs comprise the majority of our book, we also do write self-insured retention programs.
From an underwriting perspective, what is required for a submission and what should agents be expecting?
For a submission, we like to see a public entity specific new business application and any applicable supplemental operations for some of the exposures and operations that the public entity may have. We like to see 5 years worth of loss data, 10 if it's an SIR. We need financials and budgets, which oftentimes can be on the municipality's website. We also need schedules for the property, the equipment, and the fleet in an Excel format so we can upload and export that into our system. And for certain types of exposures such as jails and dams, we also need an inspection report. On the property, we do need, if you will, your COPE information, plus we've got to have square footage and year built and construction type. And then so we can calculate the loss ratio, we do need to know the expiring premium and also to ascertain if it's something that we can be competitive on. And then finally, just allowing enough lead time once we have a complete submission. While we can typically be quite responsive, this is the time of year where we're heading into 7/1, which is when the majority of the public entities across the country renew. So we just have to make sure that the underwriters can kind of manage their desk and not handle only the new business, but also the renewals that we're working on this time of year.
What value-added services are available to Tokio Marine insureds?
Many on our team are experts with really deep municipal experience. On our staff in risk control and in claims, we have people who are former law enforcement personnel, fire and EMS, elected and appointed public officials, county clerks, health and safety directors, attorneys, and even a former risk manager on our team from a municipality. We also handle all of our claims internally. We do not outsource those. We don't use independent adjusters. All of those claims are handled internally by our folks. Each insured entity, when they come on board, will have an assigned risk control professional with whom to consult and partner on issues of importance to them. This professional will provide a lot of guidance, resources, and will also conduct workshops and individualized seminars for the insured if that's something that they're interested in. We also provide access to HR Muni, which is, if you will, unlimited 24/7 HR advice and employment-related legal counsel for each of our insurers. They provide extensive knowledge of this important area and very volatile area, as well as training for managers and employees and so forth. And that pretty much concludes my time. I really appreciate the opportunity to visit with you, Zach, and kind of share what's going on in a space that's kind of near and dear to my heart. And if there's some things that we can do to help you out, I'm always here and always available. It is a space that we understand quite well and happy to lend that expertise in any way that we can.
Thank you, Royanna. I appreciate you sharing your industry knowledge with me today. The information provided throughout the presentation really helps me to better understand the current public entity marketplace. I very much look forward to working with you again in the near future.
I hope you have a great day. Thanks for listening.
Thank you. You too. Goodbye.
Bye.